Greetings, everyone. Our guest tonight for a presentation is Dr. Pamela E. Foster. And Dr. Foster has done work in genealogy and a dissertation dealing with genealogical tourism and related subjects. And she also is the uh, I guess you would call curator or the leader of a HBCU Heritage um, Genealogical Archive, book archive. And so, welcome, uh, Dr. Foster.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much for that welcome. So, yes, I completed a dissertation at Georgia State University in 2023. And the way it is about tourism is that it it looks specifically at plantation tourism and what it is that draws African Americans to that tourism. And it turns out that we attend more when Black genealogy books are the source of the exhibit stories. So I took it the next step and actually analyzed the content of Black genealogy books and came up with this really fascinating understanding of what these books do. So I'll talk a bit about that, and that's really what I would like to hear some of your input on. And then also, Ozie mentioned the interactive archive of Black genealogy books, and that goes live on December 9th. And it's called hbcuheritagehome.com, hbcuheritagehome.com. So that is the place where hundreds of Black family heritage books will be posted and conversations about them. And it's really about the books. It's not about genealogy as a practice. As we all know, it's booming as a practice, and there are all kinds of organizations and money-making enterprises. And this is not about searching for information. This is about the published books, honoring these books as artifacts, as pathways to positive ancestral self-identity. So again, this stems from plantation tourism. And the point, though, is that these books, the way they're framed, the way the ancestral stories are framed, is different from the way the stories are framed for a general audience and increasingly an international audience, an audience who is not interested in the same things African American genealogy tourists are interested in when they go to these plantations. So now I'll just briefly share with you the three things, and maybe that's something I could share the slide, but not necessarily. I will later if you want me to. I will share with you three really cool things that I found take place in the Black genealogy books, no matter the size of the book. And even it turns out, no matter whether the publisher is a commercial publisher or an academic publisher or the independent and family publishers. Those are the ones that are really near and dear to my heart. Of course, we all know Alex Haley's Roots. We all know that while that book was written for descendants, it's very much written for a mass audience. And so a lot of the books are like that. You probably know Jubilee, etc., Proud Shoes. There are so many that have a national profile, but the ones that we publish independently in small press runs for our own families, for our descendants, those are the ones that really touch my heart. But again, they all do these three things. So the three things that Black family heritage books do, number one, make heroes of the ancestors. Um, no matter if they're heroes in a big way, a little way, in commerce, in military, in church, founding, or piety in general, in educational institution founding, all kinds of ways that people are heroes for going to work every day, for being married for 50 years, all those kinds of things that people do, ways that people can be said to walk with God, if you will. That is the primary thing that is there. So that's the heroizing the ancestors. And then there is reading the record through that hero lens. And that's the part that's really different from the framing that happens other places. We give an example. Maybe I'll give this example that I just heard. I know you guys know, or at least many or most of you know, the scholar um, Carr, in class with Carr. What's his first name? Greg Carr. So just this weekend, he was talking about a new Emmett Till memorial. So in public memory, of course, and that's what plantations are too, there are two basic stories. One, or I should say, when people of African descent go to public memorials, we are looking for one of two stories. If we're going as a genealogy tourist, we're looking for that heroic ancestor story that I just spoke of. If we're going as a cultural critic, if you will, we're looking to make sure that all the horrible stuff that has been done to Black people is properly documented and is not, shall we say, sugar-coated, so that other people, not so that we can know, because we already know, but so that other people can get a taste of what it's like. So he was critiquing this Emmett Till memorial and putting it in the same vein as the lynching memorial in Alabama. And they're in the same category of telling the horror story. And that is, again, one of the stories, but there's a question of who's it for and how much. And he was actually criticizing, how much of that victimhood and horror do we need to consume? We know it, and we get the big picture, and we are enlightened by interesting stories along the way, particularly the ones that are in our families, and they do show up in our family heritage books. If your great uncle so-and-so was lynched, it's in the book, typically speaking, that sort of thing. But so the plantation or the general audience framing might say something like, oh, so-and-so was forced to work such and such, and the law said he couldn't read and write and such and such. But when it's written in the family heritage book, it might say those things, but then it would also say, but this particular ancestor did learn to read and write, or this particular ancestor uh, wasn't as confined, but was led by God, was able to carry out his mission for the Lord despite the law. That's basically what these books say. So reading the record through that hero lens says you find all the ways that the person I hate to say is human, because I don't even like that, this concept of dehumanizing that sort of thing. but just the quotidian, everyday, beautiful lives people live. That's what's depicted, even if it's in a very skeletal form. And then the final step, after you read the record through that lens, again, not the lens of uh, life is horrible and white people made it that way in America. If you read the lens through, if you read the records through the lens of my ancestors rock and let me find the myriad ways how, those are the stories that come out. And then that third step is you feel, you can read between the lines that people actually do arrive at a state of positive ancestral self-identity. And that's what we want for everyone, so that you um, honor your heritage and know that there are connections between that wonderful stuff you found in your ancestry and yourself, so that you then see the wonderfulness in yourself. It could be a particular, characteristic or interest that you have in common with an ancestor. It could be the way you carry out a value that they clearly stated and lived out. So yeah, people talk about their own identities, their own lives in connection with the positivity they draw from the ancestors. And that's what I call the positive ancestral self-identity. So that's what studying these books as a genre did for me. It let me know these three things these books do, and it spurred me to want to help all of us get the benefit. We talked before about how our families, African American families, tend to be broader on the spectrum of class distribution. So even though it tends to be uh, people who are more learned in an official way, who write the family heritage books. There are extended family members who are not in those categories, and the relationships they have with these books is a key factor. So I want to help really make sure all family members, the extended members, and not just intellectuals like us and history buffs, people who just like this stuff. We have great conversations, which um, we are delving into tonight, but encouraging those conversations among families is really what we're about. So that's an introduction to the HBCUHeritageHome.com and the world of Black family heritage books. Again, celebrating big time next year for America's 250th and the 50th anniversary of Alex Haley's Roots, but really extending for generations to come, so that we can recreate, if you will, think of all the stuff that the virtual world and AI does. People write about the beauty and all that is wonderfully instilled in them from reading at home, sitting around with family, sitting around the fireplace, like Ozie wrote about in his mom's family and that sort of thing. And people really did that, sat around and read the Bible and talked about it, sit around and read these family heritage books and talk about them, and get that intergenerational transmission of values and information that we used to get the old-fashioned way. So yeah, now we're in this new era. Perhaps one way one could think of the HBCUHeritageHome.com is a combination institution, given the ways that the home, the church, and the school have changed. So this is almost an amalgamation that brings those historical elements together in one institution. And yeah, so let's talk about these books, questions, comments, the archive of them, anything.
Thank you, Dr. Foster.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. Um, would you speak to the experiences that you may have had from um, quote unquote religious people, whether they be Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, uh, what else is out there? All that are out there, Hindus, whatever. When
I
it comes to the concept of Black genealogy authors speaking to the dead.
That is a topic on which I would like to have many more discussions. I haven't had those discussions in depth yet. This past, was it this week? Earlier this month, I gave a presentation at the American Anthropological Association convention, and the theme was indeed ghosts and shadows. And I talked about the ways in which the authors engage in conversations with the dead, or speak for the dead, or speak through the dead in these books. It's a very common thing. But in terms of the conversations on it, we could have one right now. I'd like to hear what you think of that. I will say that in general. So I've looked at, I'd say about 300 or 400 of these books. There probably are about 1,000 out there, all to be slowly included in the archive. And as you well know, Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States, and that goes for African Americans too. So Christianity is what is conveyed most in these books. I do want to do something. Again, there's just so many topics to pull out and delve into, which is why this is a research um, treasure trove for years to come. But looking at whether there are marked differences between how the Christians and people of other faiths talk about the United States in general as it impacts the family, that sort of thing. But yeah, that is a big topic. This whole idea of talking to the dead, I gave an example from my own book, and the truth is, I didn't even know this was happening. I wrote a book about my family heritage back in 2004, and there's an item, I think it's the foreword, where I'm actually speaking in the voice of my great great grandfather, saying, oh, I love you, my descendants. I thank you. I this and that. And I went back to it later and I thought, what was that? What was I doing? What gave me the authority to speak for him? Yet I did it. And turns out it's quite a common thing. We do a whole bunch of that in these books. So thank you for that question. What other questions?
Well, let me
Oops.
just ask how you okay, in terms of, let's say, looking at um, the genealogical books, the family heritage books, and then placing those books within a larger context of history in terms of the significance of these books within the context of overall Black history. Um,
That's a
what are your
great
thoughts
question.
on that?
Yeah, so I guess the big sort of unanswered question that I answered in my dissertation, not only um, on the tourism related things. But as we well know, again, these two stories that we've been looking for and that have been in tension with each other are long-standing. We all know it. We all know there's that tension between telling the brutal, horrible, ugly, painful, gory truth and the beautiful truth. And what these books do, I call it twang. The way a lot of country music does with the major chord and dropping um is it the note? It's not the note, the tone. So that here's a great example. Does anyone know the song Fancy? Have you ever heard of that? A song called Fancy by Reba McEntire. Anybody know that? And maybe that's what I'll do. I'll talk a little bit about more about the way the songs work. So the point of that song is this woman practically is turned out by her mother, the woman singing in this song. So that's a horrible thing. There's horribleness in life. Life has that. And you probably know country music has a reputation of dealing with the horrible and yet making it beautiful. Somehow it's beautiful. Somehow it's all God's got this. You can get through whatever. It's not angry and blaming someone else for it. It's very, in general, taking self-responsibility. And again, it's this lowering of pitch that is in the same context of these major notes that gives this kind of feel to this music. That's why you can talk about the worst stuff and still have it sound beautiful. And that's what these books do. To the extent that they do delve into that part of general African American history. So that's how they relate to this broader canon. Again, the broader canon has this tension, if you will, between the horrors and the honors of our ancestors. And these books resolve that tension, use twang to weave it all together and tell it in a beautiful story. So yeah, that's just one of the songs that so well represents what's happening in these books. And it just turned out that way. One could say, the old saying that if you're walking around with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So I am totally into country music. I delighted that I did some of the primary broad scale documentation of Black people in country music. And I honor that as part of our heritage. But who knew it would turn out that this is the music that perfectly explains these Black family heritage books? But again, maybe it's because this music is so in my head, in my soul, just in me, it's only natural that I would find its applicability much more easily than others would. So yeah, just um, fleshing out all of the ways these books relate to our music is also part of it. So again, we're debuting on December 9th. So there's a 1 hour recording that goes with that, but there are so many YouTube recordings. We're just going to have a ton of them on all these different topics. And there's one that I just love, again, when people are writing in these books, they're recounting wonderful times at home in ancestral homes. And they talk about the songs sung in the family. Again, be it sitting around the fireplace or be it in church, etc. And there's a nice presentation that's a good compilation of some of the songs we write about in our books, and then listening to those songs as well as listening to the songs that help explain the books themselves. So yeah, before we move on, Bilal, is there anything else you wanted to share on this idea about the death part, I really do want to engage in that kind of conversation. Do you want dear Dr. Ozie to put that on our schedule for a topic um, early next year or something to think about if we do want to go deeply into that, because that's a big issue. And then again, making sure, Dr. Hall, did I explain that relationship to you well enough? Again, this is a genre that has never been separated out before as a genre studied this way. Again, some of the big books like Roots and others are critiqued as, from a literary critic stance, from a genealogy stance in terms of records. What I found is that there's very little evidence, even though the how-to books sell, there's very little evidence that the writers of the Black genealogy books um, actually follow everything that's in the how-to books, like standards of research and all of that. As we all know, the one we're celebrating most, Roots, um, now is in the category of a fictionalized genealogy because so much of what was quote unquote documented in the formalized ways was not. And that relates to what we were talking about in terms of communing with the dead. People get the stories in the various ways we do. We were talking about epistemology last time. We know that our sources of knowledge, what we trust as sources of knowledge, vary. And yeah, that knowledge comes from not just documents, two or three sources that some outside entity said is the way it must go. There is a lot of that, but we are not limited to that. There's all kinds of documentation. If you got it in your dream from Aunt Rose that such and such is the deal, you might decide to put in your Black Family Heritage book that such and such is the deal. That's just how we roll.
Yeah, Dr. Foster,
Yes.
just want to thank you for the presentation. Very,
Oh, so
very
well.
well documented. I do want to say that I've experienced through my family talking to the dead, having conversations, having dreams or whatever. So that's something I've been researching in the past as well.
Well, good. Well, it would be great to, again, let's have a recorded conversation. Let's get it on the site. Let's encourage us to delve into that more. Maybe what I'll do is pull out a, dozen or so books that really do a lot of that and do another presentation. Like I said, I just did one for the American Anthropological Association that really hones in on the fact that we do this in our books. But if we want to delve deeper into it, I could pull out some other books that are great examples too. So
I would
yeah.
I'd love to see that. Also, December 2nd, give me the information on that.
December 9th.
Okay.
So just go to, you ready? Well, maybe, yeah, Ozie will email it out, I guess,
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
but
but
it's HBCU
wait a minute. Hold on. I'm writing it down.
Mhm.
HBCU.
Heritage Home
Okay.
dot com.
Okay. HBCUHeritageHome.com. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
it's on some of the documents already sent out. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. But it's December 9th.
Right. Got it.
Correct.
Yeah.
That will be next Tuesday.
I have another question in terms of um, in I don't know if you looked at these other um, sources, if you call them sources, but tell me the distinctions between the archive that you're doing right now and let's say, for example, the Freedmen's Bureau records. they had something called the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, and it documented slave stories between 1865 and 1872. And then there's another body of documents called the Federal Writers Project. And it's basically slave narratives that was done somewhere around 1930. And it had like interviews with like 2,300 formerly enslaved people. In terms of the stories in these two other sources, how are they similar? Do they follow the same basic principles, or have you looked at, the differences between these?
I've looked at a lot of the Freedmen Bureau records. I've looked at all of the um, WPA narratives and a whole body of other narratives. It turns out that, and you'll see this in one of the sort of overview videos or you distributed in advance. It turns out that some of the narratives um, sort of developed into family heritage books. In fact, the book or the serialized narrative, you know how early on many of our eventual publications were first serialized in newspapers. So the first thing that um, many people refer to as a Black genealogy, this is not American though, this was in France, um, is actually one of the slave narratives. The main point about it is that this is the first one where the white ancestry was acknowledged. And that's part of what makes this a family story. So it's not just again, a horror story. It starts the generational genealogical story. So there's a huge connection between the narratives and the records. Again, what's in the Freedmen Bureau records is just like what's in, I mean, not just like, it's not the same data, but it is a data source, just as are the census or land ownership documents or any kind of documents we use. So people do in these books sometimes use documents like that. Not always. It's just beautiful how there's just such a wide variety. Some have so many pages of documents, some have none. Some refer to documents but don't include them. Same with photographs. Some of them have lots of photographs. Um, and I will say, I I gave this example, but perhaps did not emphasize it enough in talking about how the stories of our ancestors will always say, yeah, they made it so hard for us, they restricted education and we couldn't go to this school and couldn't do that and couldn't do the other. But everyone has some great story about education being a significant value and playing a role. And a lot of them deal with the HBCUs. And that's why it's called hbcuheritagehome.com. And you can see this combination of home, church, and school in that name as well, with heritage, if you will, representing the church. But again, it's this amalgamated new form of institution. We don't have the institutions we grew up with intergenerationally that built us as a people. We do have the stories of them, and we do have new ways of getting the same benefit from those institutions. This is a site that says it's not enough to say there's been a breakdown in the family. It's not enough to say there's been a breakdown in the church. It's not enough to say education sucks. What are you doing in your family? You've got extended family members who fall into every one of those categories of people who no longer have the homes, who don't have the great grandfather sitting around walking with his stick, telling his stories. But they're in these books. So we can share these books with them and do it in all the newfangled ways, the games, um, memory games, trivia games. It's interesting that even now, maybe someone will invent this. We've got all these psychologists, people who know stuff. So there's a really a team, but a primary psychologist out of Vanderbilt University, I'm sorry, out of Emory, who has come up with, it's called DYK, Do You Know? And it's a fabulous measure of ancestral knowledge, and it correlates with well-being. And
I
none
have
of
a
us would
question.
be surprised. The more you know about ancestors, the better off you are. So we've adapted it for do you know your enslaved ancestors? And same thing, the more you know, the better off you are. So we want people to know more in these newfangled ways. And yes, what's the question?
Joel
My,
had his hand up first, and then Brother Mickey. Go ahead, Brother Joel.
Okay, yeah, it don't matter. If you want to, he got a burning question you want to get it out, you can go for it. You want me to go?
Well, you had
go
your
ahead,
hand
brother.
up the
Go
longest.
ahead, brother.
Oh,
Go ahead,
gotcha.
brother Joe.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Hey, Queen, I'm sorry I wasn't here and I missed the presentation.
You
I do
missed
hear,
it.
yeah, because I just got on. Shoot. And I do hear you speaking about genealogy. And the question that I wanted to ask was, is this like what is the sources for the genealogy? Is this like in the South? Is it in the North? Is it across America?
So
What's
these are
what?
books published by families across America. One of the ways they'll be organized is by state. And again, this is celebrating America's 250th birthday. And therefore, we're starting with the first state to join the Union, which is Delaware. And people all across America write these books. We write about ancestors. Obviously, we are people who've moved. We write about people in different areas. So a book can be um, categorized as being based in one state if the writer is there or there's a significant portion of the family there, that sort of thing. So they span states, of course. But yeah, the stories are from everywhere. I mean, the families who publish the books are from everywhere. But again, I just want to make sure we're very clear about the distinction between the published books like this one, see Ozie's the Carmita Mayhall story, actual books. There's a difference between a book um and a set of papers in an archive. Or again, documents you would read in the Freedmen Bureau records or documents you would read elsewhere. So many people are gathering documents and putting together family stories in various ways. And when and if they get to the point of an actual published book, that is the thing that we are talking about at hbcuheritagehome.com. That's what we curate, we display, we celebrate, and do ongoing research on. Again, there's the number of questions that can be asked and answered about these books is
How do
endless.
I get my hands on it? Last question.
On December 9th, you take yourself to HBCU, you got that? HBCU heritagehome.com. And thereafter, and just play around in there, explore the books, explore the conversations, explore the related pieces of information related to the books. It opens with just a core content, and it just is there to be built out as you choose to engage with the books.
HBCU Heritage Home, correct?
Yeah.
.com,
And,
hbcuheritagehome.com.
and it's mailed to
HBCU
you.
because education is all through it. Heritage because It's very much church and our other cultural institutions, and home because it's about ancestral home as the destiny, because it's at that destiny that we reach the positive ancestral self-identity. And that's what we want for all of us. Yes, sir?
Okay. And the I was just saying that the website address has been sent out, and we'll send it out again so that everyone can make sure they have it. Brother Mickey, I think was next, and then Dr. Grimes had her hand up. Go ahead, Brother Mickey.
Yes, my question, Doc, involves you mentioned something that I'm very sincere about and digging into when you mentioned the Freedmen's Bureau. How much in depth in the in what you're presenting to us do they dig into when it comes to the Freedmen's Bureau as far as involving the finances pertaining, for example, the beginning of it and the accumulation of the finances in that, and how those finances were lost.
So these books that I'm talking about do not analyze the Bureau at all. These books analyze families. These books are about individual Black families. These are Black family heritage books. There is a lot of research that analyzes the Freedmen's Bureau. I would recommend do scholar.google.com. Go to Google Scholar and just put it in. There are tons of articles on um, discrepancies, issues, difficulties people have, but it's a valuable resource. Many people go there and find lots of information about contracts that were negotiated. They find names of former owners and sometimes family members, one and the same. There's all kinds of information that can come from those records, including the separate thing, which was the Freedmen's Bank, in which many people lost money. Frederick Douglass, um, was accused of malfeasance. And so all of that research is out there. Just know that that relates to Dr. Hall's earlier question about how do these books interact with the broader scholarship in African America. And that broader scholarship deals with all of those issues. And many people delve specifically into the Freedmen Bureau issues. So I recommend looking at that scholarship, both the books and the scholarly articles. But know that that is not what people do in these books. Now, some people do. There are various degrees of dealing with, um, if you will, legal and political and social issues beyond the family. Um, and I just love that there is indeed that variety. Some of the books, as you can imagine, let's just use Roots again as an example. Obviously, that's a book that, does the whole America's horrible past thing in depth. Um, Some of the books do that, or again, just put their own family in context. We all have interactions with those things. Our people were fought in a war, or they were in a flood. Again, if your person got lynched or your person owned a Black business, whatever, you're going to talk often in a broader sense about those individual things that were part of your families. So yes, is it Dr. Grimes now?
Yes, Dr. Grimes.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for your presentation. I am sorry to say that I kind of didn't get the entire thing, but I did read some of the stuff that Mr. Hall sent out. I kind of looked through that some.
Yeah.
I've kind of been doing. Well, let me ask you this question first. I kind of want to understand, and maybe you all have already talked about that, but if you'll indulge me. Your these books and what you're talking about, is this individual families that have put together their histories and
Yes.
it come together in one place?
Yes.
So,
In a book, not one place. Again, it's a collection of papers, not a video. Not that there aren't videos associated with it, but if there's a book, then it's here. And then anything else that's associated with that book, be it videos, conversations, games, all of that stuff. Yes.
okay, so then I've done kind of some extensive searching for my own family as well. And I've kind of put some stuff together and honestly writing and continuing to find different things. A problem that I have found is when you get to a certain point, and they've called it the wall, where you hit the wall and being able to continue to go back in your heritage. I guess maybe it's when they came and black and white and all that kind of stuff. How do you do any of what you're saying speak to maybe how to get around that or how to break through
Absolutely.
that?
I would say two things. One is each of these books that talks about people beyond 1870, which is, I would really say most of them. I mean, some of them talk about ancestors from the 1400s, the 1600s. It used to be, again, Alex Haley was like, not really the first, but the first big deal. Oh, finding the person from Africa.
Yeah, the first person.
But that is not the goal. These books do everything. Again, some go back to somebody in the 1400s. But that's not the goal. It's like to get past it. It's like to tell your story, whatever you know, whatever you've got. These books are about passing on what you've got to pass on. And that doesn't mean some people don't do additional research, and if you find more, include it. But that also doesn't mean, oh, I don't have a story because I didn't know how to get past a particular date. And I will say, so that's the one thing. You will find that people get around that. First of all, it's not it's not a thing, and I'll get back to that. But if it were, or to the extent it is, people get around it by telling whatever story they have access to or they choose to tell. They don't say, oh, I can't tell it because I hit a roadblock over there, or, I don't know exactly what year Uncle so and so was born in, or I don't know, exactly this or the other, so I'm not going to tell it. So, yeah, nothing is a barrier when you choose to tell the heroism, the walks with God of your ancestors. Nobody lets lack of a detail stand in the way of conveying what these books convey. The other thing is, again, genealogy is booming, so all of the resources are there. All you have to do is go on Google, go on YouTube. There's 9 billion videos on, and they use just that phrase, that 1870 brick wall, and then they say the phrase is BS. There is no brick wall. All that means, as you
Mhm.
many know, that just means that that was the census year when many people were in that document. There were Black people
True.
in previous documents, and the census is one of hundreds of documents. And it turns out we are more documented than anybody else because we're arrested more, we're harassed more, whatever. So documentation of us is not the
Mhm.
story. And we are talked about. We are in everybody's diary, everybody's letter, whether we were writing the letter or not. Owners were talking about us. So if that's what you're interested in, documentation, this whole 1870s wall stuff, yeah, it's BS.
What I and what I mean, just a little bit more in depth is trying to get past a certain time to know whether or not it's actually your ancestors or not. In other words, trying to
So, right. I
document.
will, again, just take my advice on this. Know that there are resources out there working daily to help people like you do this. We know that many people are doing it now, and the resources are there to take you from exactly where you are to where you want to go. So, me talking in general is not going to help you. But I will say, Google it, find the specific YouTube videos that speak to where you are. When you say get past just know that that's vague. Like, what document are you looking for? Is there a particular person? There's somebody who can walk you through whatever your barrier is. And we could talk. I tend not to do that because there are so many people who do that. I don't even want to be in their way because they don't need me. Y'all don't need me for that. There's a ton of it. Um, but you do need me for these books. Nobody else is talking about these books like this. And I will do whatever I can to help you, encourage you to do a book by showing you how wonderful it is and the beauty, um, the purpose they serve for the families. But yeah, in terms of gathering the information that goes in your book, I will just say, don't presume you have too little right now. And if there is something in particular you're looking for that predates 1870, um, get that specific information you're looking for and get with someone who can help you in particular, and you'll get it. And you can call on me to do that. But yeah, it would have to be worked on individually, specifically. And again, it would serve you well to start with the attitude that it's available, not that there's some 1870 wall. I will say this, a place there is a wall, a place that HBCUHeritageHome.com is working on. Again, the reason it starts with HBCU. So many of our ancestors went to those schools. Our ancestral records, our stories are in those documents, but we're a little slow on getting everything digitized and eagerly making it available. So you can find old catalogs and yearbooks and newspaper articles, but it varies across the board. Like one school might say, for instance, you've got to prove that you're the last living descendant of so and so before you can get a transcript or something. I've got some great stuff. I've got there's one HBCU. You guys might know that while there are about 100 now, there have been more than 250. So most of them are closed, and their records are at various repositories. Um, so I've got three ancestors who went to one school called Mary Holmes Seminary. It was in West Point, Mississippi, and it was run by the Presbyterian Church. So in Philadelphia, at the Presbyterian Historical Society, those records are there. So I'm able to get their transcripts. I could see what activities they were involved in. Um, this is one of the wonderful things, what courses they took, textbooks. So really understanding what people learned at home and how that then continued through church and school. I'm just having a fabulous time, um, delving into some of those questions and looking at, but yeah, that's a big thing. There's some public policy, there's some public knowledge information um, that we're supporting, promoting around that. We want people to be able to just go to a school and say, my great great uncle so and so graduated from this school in 1896. So I've got a what is that? A diploma. I want the rest of dude's records, his application, the recommendation letter that some minister wrote talking about his attributes, those sorts of things.
Joel had his hand up, and then Brother Myron.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Brother Joel.
All right, cool. So my question is, it sounds like this information is being compiled from somebody giving their personal story.
Wait,
And I
hold
could
that
be
thought, hold that thought, hold that thought. So every book, can you see behind me here? So when you say somebody giving their personal story, I just want to make sure you understand we're talking about a bunch of individual families. Can you see all these books?
Yes.
This book, so right. So yeah, it's not one person. But yeah, or actually it is typically the author, even though they ask for input from many family members, they tend not to be as much group projects as perhaps they could or should be. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure we were starting on the right footing before we moved
Yeah,
on.
I'm
So
with you.
yes.
We're on
Okay.
the same
Yeah.
page.
Okay.
Okay. So my question is, how is the information vetted? Like, okay, so right now we have a bunch of people that are indigenous, they Hebrews, they Moors, they are, all kind of different ideologies that they want to label themselves as. So how do you how, how is the information vetted, or is it
That's a
just
great
is
question. Okay, hold it
okay?
right there, and then let's expand so that I don't get mixed up.
Got
So each family makes that decision. That's the point I was making about there is no universal, like, let's follow these standards of research and this and this. Each family decides. It's just that simple. Um, Again, you could write a book about this, a bunch of stories that um are from your dreams of Aunt so and so. I mean, that's a bad example because no book is fully that. But does that make the point well enough? I hope you're getting it. And some are
Yeah,
done
no,
by
it does.
academicians. We've got a bunch of university presses and commercial presses that publish this stuff. They've got 9 billion references in the back, and that's how some roll. And
Okay, all right.
and that's
So
not the way generally, again, then there's this whole body of the ones that are published by the families where their primary audience is the descendants. They're not,
mhm.
they don't care if some academician or some mass audience person ever sees this.
Right. Okay. So lastly, this is not meant to be historical. This is meant to be more of personal memoirs.
It's all of the above. One can't say it's one or the other. There's a lot of documented history, and people will tell you about, the 9 documents they had to check and double check and how they traveled here and there to do it. It's not one or the other. It's all of the above.
Brother Myron.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how are you? Thank you, Dr.
Good.
Foster. Excellent, excellent presentation. I gotta give it to you.
Oh, you're
Uh,
so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Look, I just retired from the National Archives Record Administration, and I was just wondering, are you using any resources from that agency in reference to getting all this information together? Because
So
I'm sure.
again, this is not archival information. This is not documents. This is
Okay.
actual books. But the
Okay.
Library of Congress does have
Okay.
uh, one of the largest collections of these books. It
Mm-hmm.
has about 233 on its list of African American genealogies.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very low number, though, given that there probably are about 1,000 out there. But so yeah, in terms of actual published books, yeah, there's some at the Library of Archives, I mean at the Library of Congress, and know that the National Archives is a place for papers and records.
Right.
That's the stuff that people often consult to
Mm-hmm.
put
Right.
the information together in the book, but that's not the book. And I'm about the published books.
Right. So, and another thing, you mentioned the fact of monetary benefits from this information being gathered the way it is. Um, how could a poor soul like me, being retired, benefit from being a part of the research process? And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, let me think that through.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk later. Yeah, I'm not sure what the questions. I'd have to think that through. Um, so does your family have a book? Maybe let's start there.
It's not. No, we don't. I'm gonna be.
So I can envision you being the kind of user, the kind of visitor who would go to hbcuheritagehome.com
Mhm.
just as a general explorer.
Okay.
You be like, wow, what is out there? There's these 500-page books, there's these 30-page books, about Roots and maybe
Mhm.
something by some other big name author, about this and that. Oh,
Mhm.
but I don't know about this. This looks interesting. It might just catch your eye. Your
Right.
people may have come from such and such a state. So you might look at one, oh, it was a state. There's a category of ones that are fewer than 150 pages. You might say, oh, well, what do they do when there's just a little bit? Like maybe I'm thinking about one and
Mhm.
I'm not thinking about doing the 600-page thing.
Right.
What are some of the examples? How do they do it when they're just doing 178? And really like reading them and talking about them.
Mhm.
The book, I don't really want to call them book clubs. That's not really, but you know what it's like when you read the Bible together, you talk about it, and you
Mhm.
read a little book. Like I would love us, like I don't know why this hasn't already happened, Ozie. Why haven't can we get on the calendar? Can we read the Carmita May Hall story together and discuss it? That's
Okay.
the kind of
Mhm.
thing I'm talking about.
Mhm. Okay.
I mean, I'd love to do something like that.
Okay. But
So
yeah,
I would think that might be a first way you would engage.
uh-huh.
Maybe I would say a second way. A first way might be that you might look at just a bunch of videos. There's all kinds of lengths. Like I said, there's an intro one that's an hour long. We have a guest here. I think I saw him, Mr. Um, Holland Ralston has a
Mhm.
that's in the category of Ozie's. Um, And a conversation around that book is the debut conversation that we share. But there's little videos like the stuff Ozie sent out where you might learn about these books in, a 15-minute thing, a 24-minute thing.
Okay.
So maybe going through different lengths of videos, but the point is, I mean, after a minute, you don't have to keep going because the point is, the bottom line is it's a variety, okay?
Gotcha.
They do
Gotcha.
three things. They make heroes of our ancestors,
That's a great
read the
thing.
record through the hero lens,
Absolutely.
and
That's
then it shows the people reverencing or reveling in something about themselves that they are able to connect to the ancestors. And that's the positive ancestral self-identity.
and it's
And
giving us
that's
a
what we
better,
want.
better.
So the edges of our family. So yeah, how are you going to write your book and what conversations are you going to have so that your great great nephew so and so who might be on the street right now or close to, he doesn't have the fireplace at home. He doesn't have home like your people had home. He doesn't have two parents or whatever.
Right.
Does that mean he can't have positive ancestral self-identity?
Great. That's excellent. I appreciate that. So that's definitely give me an idea and it definitely give me a perspective on what you're talking about as far as what your writings are all about. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the positivity that y'all bring in with this to give us a better outlook on ourselves as a race of people.
Exactly.
As
And
people.
again, it's that thing that, somebody has written about you, is writing about you, and many people are taking their senses of who they are from those framings by others. The whole point is that these books are framed by us. This is our own family members deciding what matters, what our self-image is, and that's what makes them so beautiful.
Anyone else have any questions? Brother MJ?
Okay.
I just wanted to know, I just went on the website. You said it wasn't ready yet.
December 9th.
Okay. When is the date that it will be ready? I want to make sure that I write it down.
Okay. December 9th.
December, December 9th?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, okay. All righty. Thank you. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
And what comes to your mind initially? How do you think you might engage with it initially?
Me, there's a lot of things that I don't know. I'm from South Carolina. I'm from Ground Zero. So there's a lot of information that I just want to know about my family history. Of course, my
Oh,
family. Um,
awesome.
we
So again,
started,
I
I
would
guess.
recommend that you go on YouTube, do a YouTube on South Carolina Black genealogy. There's a ton of videos. There are many people in my, you know, genealogy enthusiast circle who are into that state, um, in terms of helping you find resources, helping you know what kinds of conversations to have with your existing family members to get you some information about your people that you need.
Mhm.
What this site will do for you is give you some examples. Again, that might be the place for someone like you to start. You might want to look at some of the South Carolina books.
Mhm.
Again, by state is one of the ways they're organized. And if nothing else, it'll give you a sense of the variety, but also you can see what kind of sources they use. But I think really what you get, see, I don't really like using the books for that kind of technical sense. I mean, they're such, they're spiritual artifacts.
Spiritual artifacts.
I like reading them just for the stories. Again,
Mhm.
just getting together with groups of people and reading them and discussing them. In terms of like technically, what sources do I go to and how do I do that? Yeah, let the people who are experts in those sources and in that research guide you on that. I wouldn't recommend that you go through the South Carolina books, for instance, and see, well, what sources are they using so that you can find out which ones you would want to use. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I just like reading the books as the stories we choose to tell. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Just think about them like
Yeah.
that. This is how we choose to tell it. This is how
Mhm.
we're framing it. This is how we're twanging
Mhm.
these stories. I want to hear that twang, see that twang, talk about that, enjoy that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Something to resonate towards, the heart. The
Yeah.
stories of different African genealogies, right?
Exactly. Black
Okay.
American families.
Black American
There is a
family.
lot of, just like we were talking about the various religions, we know that there are, that conversation is out there. Not only are there those of us who anchor our identity in people who were enslaved in this country, there also are those of us who anchor our African ancestry in people who were born in the various African or Caribbean countries. Um, and of course, Native American. So we've got a lot of books that, show those kinds of mixtures or those kinds of, so a lot of stuff qualifies as African American.
Good.
Let me
But
also
as you
add,
also might expect, most of them are, what they call FBA these days, because most of them are talking about uh, they're grounding our ancestry in the United States. So we are heroizing our people who fought in the Revolutionary War.
There you go.
We are heroizing our ancestors who fought in the Civil War on both sides.
Hmm.
That's a conversation we might have to have. There's actually, um, I think, almost a need for people to have their heart soothed. I say it like this sometimes. Everybody wants their ancestor to be Nat Turner. It wasn't that way. So when you find it in you to honor your ancestor who stayed with their owner family, your ancestor who served his owner and the owner's son in the Confederate Army, you could say, yeah, I'm gonna write them off. I don't like what they did. Just know that generally speaking, that's not what these books do. Other people will write us off But these are ways to find the beauty in your ancestors, no matter what someone else says about them. And again, we might need some priming for this because we have gotten so much into this mindset of thinking that, everybody's a radical and everybody, pulled a gun on a white man. And if he didn't do that, then he's not a heroic ancestor. And most didn't. Those aren't the stories that permeate these books. You don't see a bunch of stories about like the way you get to be a hero is not that you got revenge on some white man. There are those stories, don't get me wrong, but that's not what makes a hero.
You have to have a very closed mind to close to just block your own mind in that way for you to say, oh, if they're not, as you say, a Nat Turner, you have to make sure that you have to dig deep, open your mind, and understand the conditions that our people were under, for those that were broken, so to speak.
And
You know,
again, just hear what you're saying. And this is very good conversation. Hear the way you're framing that. And different people frame it different ways. So when you're writing your book about your ancestors, you might describe it that way. You might say, and there's a fabulous movie, I recommend it. We could even talk about that sometime. Gods and Generals. I love how Ralph Abernathy's daughter, Donsley, plays this role of a Black Southern woman who chooses, she and her husband choose to stay with their owner family and protect their home. And um, understanding that that's part of life is just so important. And yeah, if you need to have a primer or something to permit you to revel in that, that might indeed be in order because that again, it's part of our story. So if we need something first before we can make heroes of our ancestors, let's do that. Something
well,
first.
my point, Doc, was you're going to find stories where you have family members that weren't what you would call heroes. You're going to find family members that were heroes. You're going to find both. What you have to remember on either way is their conditions that they were under. You will find maybe in research where a family member where they had the way they were able to break the father down was to kill a child in front of his mother and father, or to break that man in some type of way, as they used to call buck breaking in front of the females in their family, or in front of the so-called mate and or wife. You have to you have to open your mind, and it's not pretty. The story is not pretty. The history of America
It's
isn't
not
pretty.
pretty.
I
It's
think
not
the
pretty at
point
all.
that you will find in these books is that your perspective determines how you frame the ugly and the beauty together. Most
Good.
people know that life is both ugly and beautiful.
Yeah,
Understood.
Put
yeah.
so much focus on the ugly. This is a genre that does not do that. That's why it's worth reading this genre. This is a whole different genre. It's all about Black people, primarily in America. And at the same time, it's not all about the most horrible stuff. Isn't that something? That's a little, that's
That's
not what
good.
the
It
book's
shouldn't
about
be.
us as a genre. Again, as a genre. Of course, they include all the stuff, which is why I think it's worth looking at them as a genre because we really get to see the variety. Um, some families choose indeed to include a lot of, uh, again, that second thing of how you read the record through the hero lens. That's a big part of, how are you reading American history?
Mm.
Are you looking at so again, let's take this example of American history of laws that say a Black person can't be taught to read and write. So you write about this law and America sucks and da da da. And at the same time, very often in this same book, the people will write, but my ancestors learned how to read and write while they were enslaved. You know, whatever law, yeah, lynching sucked, but my ancestor, wrote the articles that got us to start paying attention to lynching, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a balance. Again, it's that twang, it's that lowered pitch. It's not avoiding the ugly. Some people think the only way you can see the beauty in life is to not know that it sucks too.
That's terrible.
And I don't know, maybe I love these books so much as again as a genre. Not any one does it fully. But yeah, as a genre, they're like great country music to me. They twang, they get all the worst emotions and feelings in life because life's got all of that. And it's also got all the beauty, the love, the eternal stuff. It's just, yeah,
Dr. Foster,
these books hit my core the same way country music hits my core. And they do similar things.
Dr.
So it
Foster,
doesn't surprise
I
me.
think
Brother Myron has his hand up.
Yes,
Go ahead,
sir.
Brother Myron.
I do see what you're saying, and I do feel your heart. It's like you know that these books are going to be a healing process for us as a people, and it's going to create a mindset that's going to heal us in some degree. I'm not saying that it's going to solve all our problems, but it's going to give us a perspective about ourselves more so than what we already had. What we had was a perspective from another people. Now we're getting it from our own. So that makes a big difference. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And then keep this in mind too. We're getting this as a group publicly, but the whole point is that individually for years, the families that have been living off these books have been getting that. It's like that, everybody's out there looking for a solution. How do we do this? How do we help people's lives be better? The blueprint is there again and again and again. They tell you because you have the father sitting around telling these stories to the children. That's how you get that. That's how we get there. So again, how do you recreate that in this virtual, in these new technologies, given that you don't have, old grandpa smoking his pipe and spitting his juices out or whatever. But yeah, it's that kind of thing that comes to mind.
Question.
Yes, sir.
In terms of uh, looking at this genre of books that we're talking about, um, how would they compare to, and are you familiar with a body of writings that are called the Black Ravens? And it's part of it's Arabic literature, and it's the experience of enslaved Africans who lived in Islamic countries who were brought there as slaves, very similar to Black people in the Americas. And it covers their
I
experience.
don't know about the Ravens. That sounds like a great article or discussion to include on the site. Like do a video on it, do a discussion on it, do a something. Again, this is America. We're celebrating America's 250th next year and Alex Haley's Roots 50th birthday next year. And we understand American means a lot of other stuff too. But it's again core FBA stuff. So no, what I don't know about Ravens. It has nothing to do with Arabic stuff. That is a great connection. That's the kind of connection that um, speaks to why this archive is a treasure trove forever for all kinds of related research. So do you see how research on maybe how books are done in some other country by people of African descent would be a great contribution, great discussion to have on this site?
Yeah, I think it would. Actually, for example, there are about 312 million Afro-Brazilians, people of African descent who were enslaved in Brazil. And, they're today, they're the descendants of people who had a similar experience and who I think slavery ended in like 1888 for them. They also had segregation. They also have continued to experience racism. And there's a whole body of literature associated with them. A lot of it is written in Portuguese. And but in other words, this is something that there is some element of this in many places all around the world where Black people were distributed as part of the transatlantic slave trade. And
Yeah, this is
only,
about families, just so you know. But right, their
right,
families are all around the world. Families
right,
have been
well,
writing about their
mhm,
stories since day one.
right.
So yes, these are very common
Mhm,
texts. We know that it's mostly a 19th and 20th century thing in terms of, actually putting it in a book.
right,
And so that's what this archive is about. But
right.
absolutely, these stories, I mean, family stories are as old as families.
Right. And connecting them like the ones because you have the transatlantic slave trade, the trans-Saharan slave trade, the East Africa and the
And just
Egyptian
know that
slave
they're
trade.
not about slave trade. Again, you're
Oh
you're in
no,
the
I'm
history
not focusing on
now,
slave trade. I'm talking
which
about
is
the people.
something. Oh, okay, yeah, just so
I'm
you
talking
know
about the
that these are
people and
about this.
families who are
Right.
similarly situated all around the world. And like, for example, and I know in the dissertation, I know you did additional books, but I think you talk about or analyze 23 books in the dissertation and in terms of as a sample size as to whether or not 23 would be deemed a valid sample size to generalize
That's
to
a
the whole.
great question.
Mhm, mhm.
So, like I said, the Library of Congress list is only 233.
Right.
So, from that perspective, it's 10% of the sort of what's out there in the general public.
Okay.
The fabulous thing about research, and you know this, the point is that the contours of the sample is not the number. Um, and now, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily would want to, but we could do really quick textual analysis of, big data, deep,
Mhm.
multiple texts at a time.
Right.
But nothing was going to get this level of depth with a human being rather than AI
Mhm.
making decisions about how to code things and what is similar to what and all of that. But now that we have this core, um, yeah, it's a fabulous thought to, run a bunch of these, all 600, 300, 1,000, through a search and glean some things that way. That's a beautiful thought. One of the things that this touches my heart. Again, many people don't like it, but like it or not, that's our reality. We are very much, of course, a capitalist country, and our social life, our life is part of our cultural life, meaning the stuff we buy. So we're connected with brands and um, organizations. So those come up in our stories. So having these brands celebrate the families is a big part of what we're doing too. For instance, people will write about grandpa so and so just always had to have ketchup on his scrambled eggs and uh and not just any ketchup, had behinds. Um Heinz honoring the family, we are pleased to have been a part of your memories over the generations kind of thing. The different cars. I mean, we named so many brands and stuff in telling our stories. Again, we talked about songs, that's one thing, but this whole cultural world that we live in shows up in our stories, and giving the people on the other side of those cultural experiences the opportunity to honor our families is a big part of this project also.
Yeah. Brother Joel has his hand up. Brother Joel.
Yes. Hey, Dr. Grimes, did I just hear you use the term FBA? And if you did,
Did
what
you
do you
say
mean by
Dr.
that?
Grimes or Dr.
I
Foster?
mean, I'm sorry, Dr. Foster.
Mhm.
Did I just say you used the term FBA?
You did. I expected you guys were familiar with it. I used it in the context of making the distinct, not the distinction, making it clear that we understand that there is a variety in the types of people of African descent. In this
Do you,
country,
do
we
you
have.
do you understand the origin of FBA?
I wasn't trying to at this moment. What I was trying to do at this moment was help us understand that people of African descent include people who identify with enslaved people in the United States and people who identify with people from various African and Caribbean countries. So just making the point that that's there, not making judgments or making a statement about the terminologies we use for those people or those different kinds or the politics thereof. Just that we all know that they're there. We've got those of us who really anchor our identity in this country. And there are
Well,
those of us who anchor our ancestral identity in other countries. And
right.
we're
Well,
all
FBA
of
don't deal with
African descent.
FBA don't deal with any of that. What you talking about? Maybe one day we should discuss it. But if you
Okay,
don't know it, you might want to find out. Or I can do a presentation. But we need to know
that
what
would be
FBA
awesome.
means. Okay.
Yes.
All right. But it's rooted in misinformation. I just want to let you know that. That's a term none of us should be using. That's my
Okay.
opinion.
And don't we all have them? And that's why we have these wonderful conversations. But I hope you get the point that not intending to have a political statement on that term, knowing that it's charged. I hope you got the point that I'm just making, that people of African descent include ancestry from various countries. And the
Yeah.
books that are
The
in this
diaspora. I'm with
archive
you.
are mostly the people who root ourselves in the United States of America. That's
Oh,
the
mhm.
majority of them, and those are the people who are writing these books. Now, over time, as there are more of us who are outside of that category, there will be more of other kinds of books. So
I
yeah,
think
that's
I
a
think Doc to help y'all out a little better. Instead of using that term FBA, the most accurate term you can use, far as when it comes to a Black American that was born here, is the term they use. It's called a freedman.
oh yeah, people use all kinds. It's never
No,
going to
no,
be
no,
that
no,
we're
no.
all using the
That that
same.
that that can only be used by ones born here.
But people use all time. I mean, we know that. Yeah, people use all kinds of phrases. You're never gonna get, I'm sure people appreciate your suggestion for what terminology they should use, but yeah, you'll hear all these words and you'll see them all in these books. That's a big part of what this about. Again, it's about the variety. Oftentimes we get this sense that there's a lot more uniformity to African American families. Again, there's that. You see those through lines, but the point of reading one family at a time is you see, wow, yeah, that's these people. That's not the Joneses over here. That's this family. Wow, there really are differences. Wow, isn't this a cool story? And just delight in the people being the people. They are not using the same terms. You will see some of these books that are so poorly written, you think, is this English? But is it a story about their family? Is it a story that brings just richness and glory? Yeah. So yeah, we'll have that, and you'll have all kinds of terms that people don't like. And I mean, right, that's just life.
Um,
And the thing that I really love about this, again, you know, that typically when people study genres, it's so that they can then become a critic of the genre. You know, well, a good examples of this have these three elements. And so I'll say, well, this is a well-written one, or this is a good one, or this is a bad one, because it does these. I love that as a genre expert, I am not a critic in the sense of, well, this book is better than that one and that one. No, not that I don't, I get into, you know, there are entities that do give awards. One, my book was nominated for award, but I understand that they all do the same thing for families. And my mission is to get that thing done for more of us in the family, not tell somebody else how they should have written their book and what their terminology should have been.
question, and actually, in terms of this is related to like when you examine these books. Um, One experience that I've had is that I have some cousins who've done some research, family research, and we come from a place, our ancestors lived on a place called Deal Island in Maryland. And it's a kind of remote type community. And I have one cousin that there's a group that their perspective is that, well, they lived on the island in cooperation with the whites that were there on the island. And they talk about the whites gave, hand-me-down things to them and how they survived because of their interaction with the whites and, basically a grateful attitude and all of those things about their relationship with the whites. And so, I listen to their perspective and how they tell the story, but then my own research showed tension between the two groups on the island. And I had evidence of all kinds of bad things that were committed against the blacks on the island, including members of my family. And so in terms of looking at the dynamic there in perspective, it's like in telling the story and going back and doing the research, would you say that it is a function of, let's say, the view you bring to the table, your perspective that you bring to the table and interpretation, or is it a function of the evidence that you find to support uh, just basically just telling the truth? And
That's
where do
the
you see
exact
that?
same coin.
Mhm.
It's interpreting the evidence. That second step, again, heroize the ancestors and then read the record through that ancestral lens. That's what we're doing in these books. So, reading the record through whatever lens you're choosing, you as an author might choose the lens that says, I'm going to find the ways these people were effing us over. And with that lens, you will find it. It's there. We all know that. And you will highlight those stories. Someone else will choose a lens of cooperation, of love. Where are the places where we got along? And they will choose to highlight those stories. You may find some book that has both stories. They might have them in equal portion. One might have one more or the other. It's all about the author and the family. But we all know that life is such that all those stories are out there. It's not a question of, did people work together cooperatively or were they always fighting? We know that it's all of the above, and everything in life is about which story are you choosing to tell and retell and resonate in, not which story happened. If you think that's what life is about, you're missing it. History is about and genealogy and memorializing and monumentizing is about what do you choose to focus on? What do you choose to hold up and perpetuate and help other people do? I see a hand up again. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
did I answer your question? Wait, before we move on, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Well,
what
I
I'm
just think
saying,
it's just a discussion to have. But go ahead, Brother Myron.
but oh, that's a great situation we're talking about because basically, I think what Dr. Foster is actually bringing forth more than anything from what I hear is actually
You're
creating.
breaking up.
Yeah, it's hard to hear. What can we do? Can you do something as the host?
No, I think
Can we
it's
make
no.
sure everybody's muted?
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, create that hero in the people that you're writing about that were African people, and create that hero so people can grow and build a better perspective of who we are as a people. That's where that they may have been brutalized, but they actually did not retaliate. They loved them. They grew up to a sense of being better than them by loving them through the brutalization of what they were dealing with. So basically, I see what Dr. Foster is saying in reference to the heroism in reference to our people and developing that mindset where we as a people have an understanding of who we can be and what we can grow to be in reference to everything. And seeing this in these writings will create that heart and that mindset in us to be better, to be more attuned to the positive instead of creating that negative perspective of where we've always been.
But why is it negative to think about defending oneself?
Amen.
Not saying it's negative about defending yourself, brother. I'm saying that what I'm saying is, brother, there's a different story in every person's heart. And if your story is always defending, and not seeing the creation of making you a better person, a better man, and having the love for your people to create that love in them, then that's a bad place to be.
Not
That's a,
really, because I think that, like Dr. Foster mentioned, we're dealing with two sides of the same coin. So when you're talking to martial arts, we're talking about yin and yang. We talk about things, forces that operate within the same sphere, but one may take more time against another. One may take a different point in time against another. When we describe it as negative, when we're talking to the youth, I'm only saying this to the group. When we start to explain what we're talking about here to the youth, if you don't give them something to feel like they can stand on, where we're not calling it negative, and at the same time we want to call it love as the opposite of this, then it kind of leaves out some things I think going down the road that have to be said.
yeah, but maybe
Well,
I used the wrong word in reference to being negative.
let me
Maybe,
give an example of
yeah,
something.
go ahead.
Um, okay, like let's say uh, when in the beginning, when we started out, I made mention about the larger picture as far as the Black history overall in general, in terms of how these stories connect into Black history overall in general. And I'm reminded of something that Dr. Ivan Van Sertima used to always say. He said, that which happened in the past and that which we believe happened in the past conditions the living present and therefore the future. So history is not a dead thing. And he would always go on and emphasize a quote from Professor Cheikh Anta Diop that said that we must rescue and reconstruct Black history based on facts and empirical evidence, not in a protest posture, not based on myths and half truths, but grounded in facts and reality. And one of the things that Van Sertima would always emphasize is that if we look at history and we romanticize history, we distort the history, we look at it from a mythological standpoint, it removes us from being grounded in reality and it impacts our ability to move forward, our ability to make progress going into the future. So when I look at these stories and I look at the various different ways that these stories are told, the perspectives that they're told from. I think there are multiple ways to analyze these stories. I like the agape method system. But I think there are multiple ways to look at these stories and examine these stories. And what I see is something for this whole project, Dr. Foster, that you're working on. I see it as something that opens a door that that has a whole lot of other things that it could expand into that are needed in our community. Like, for example, I think you talked about there were 1,000 or something plantations across the country, and that a lot of the stuff centers of the travel and genealogy stories around these kind of things. But there are like 179 slave ports in the Americas where Black people were delivered as slaves. There are 79 along the west coast of Africa alone. So if we talk about a tourism industry, we talk about it from a commercial standpoint. You like companies like 23andMe is the only publicly traded genealogical company. The others are private, like Ancestry.com and African Ancestry and MyHeritage. They're privately owned companies. 23andMe is a publicly traded company, and it actually has multiple companies under its umbrella. But in terms of looking at it from the standpoint of like these books and of expanding that into tourism, expanding that into other educational programs that can help with homeschools, that can be part of high school curriculums, regular public school curriculums, or even college curriculums, so that we get the information out so that people can begin to explore their heritage and like Brother MJ was asking questions about how to get started and all those kinds of things. I have an active ancestry.com that we can just kind of get together and talk, get some basic information, and we can start pulling together the tree and putting together a genealogical tree. And you could even do the DNA and get your DNA test, do a tree, and just start the process of research. Because I just think that it's something that we all should be doing. We all should delve into and try to learn, more about our ancestry. I know Brother RJ. I spoke to someone that I think yesterday or day before with Brother RJ and Brother RJ's family, and we were hoping to get them on tonight to talk about because they have ancestry that was written multiple generations ago that's been maintained in a book in their family and is updated from time to time. But all of these are things I think in terms of one of the question I'll leave with Dr. Foster is that how do we funnel stuff to you? Like if there are other people that are trying to do books or whatever, because you might be able to do a project that actually deals with encouraging people to write their books and helping to publish those books.
Mm.
You're muted. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Oh.
You're muted.
You can email me in the meantime, but then after the 9th, post it on the site. Anybody who's got a book to share or any information, conversation, all of that. That's precisely what it's for. Okay. To gather and talk about, say whatever needs to be said about this thing. Well, I guess it's been said enough. So yeah, just know that there are many different aspects of the whole vast genealogy world. And I just want to keep emphasizing that this is not all of that leading up to a book. This is not except in the sense that it's helping gain access to the HBCU records for our ancestors.
Brother RJ.
Beyond that, the records, we've got so many people dealing with them, with how to use them, how to gather advice. So this is not about how to do a book. This is about enjoying and studying and reading and discussing the books that exist and that are being published every day because there is such a vast industry that's helping them get done. It's just that we're not that pipeline, except in the sense of, the motivation, the excitement that like, wow, look what can happen for your family. Look what it can be. But yeah, we're not trying to step on toes and repeat what's already out there in terms of here's a document you can use to research.
This is Brother
Oh, I see
RJ.
Dr. Grimes with a hand up.
I'm sorry. Well, I don't know. Hey, excuse me, Dr. Forster, but I'm savvy on a lot of things, but putting my hand up is not one of them on this call. So I
You
would
do
like
it
to
by
jump in
yourself.
if you don't mind and have a couple of memorable moments of what we're doing here because it's very historic and this is very timely for what is happening in this hour. And I want to thank you so much for you hooking up with Reverend Brother Hall to bring this opportunity to all of us. And we had
Amen.
this in our family, and as we were talking, several of our family members alluded to with Brother Hall several days ago about we have what you were talking about. We have this in place. My great great grandfather did those ledgers. He did those conversations around the fireside chat. He sat around under the bush harbors, called the bush shelter. They started churches. They started small businesses. They had lawyers in the family, doctors in the family, and I'm glad that you came forth because now you have afforded us an opportunity to be able to get those ledgers and generals away from certain people who I don't want to sound ill towards them if they're listening, is to hoard them or say open it up where it can become a book where all of us, all the family members can buy in and give conversation and come forward. And I really appreciate you lending to us how to do that process so that they don't feel that they can hold that Bible to themselves or hold those ledgers to themselves only, but they can open it up, share it, let the young people give input around the fireside. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And yeah, there are conversations to be had as well among authors about what their experiences were like as they were doing the books. Again, oftentimes they end up being pretty much a one-man show. Um, there's a lot of reaching out and asking for stuff, and there's not a lot of cooperation necessarily, again, average, generally speaking. And then of course, after it's published, people come out of the woodwork. Oh, I got this story and that story. And that's another reason this is such a good resource because it's things that could be posted that are associated with the book. Okay, this story didn't get in, or this is an expansion thereof. So we can continue these conversations around the books. And that's another thing that's really so cool too. This these books that are published in the 19th, 20th, and 21st century, these are going to be the foundational books that the next generations of books will be referring back to. So that's really cool to watch happen too, the intergenerational nature of the books, different branches of that same family will have their own books that will connect back to that one. So yeah.
Dr. Grimes has a hand up.
Yeah, I was kind of listening. Back in 2016, I did a book, a whole book for my family's history. I mean, and I reproduced it for all my brothers and sisters so we could each have the information. But
Uh,
I didn't do it in book form. I just did it. It was something I wanted to do. As I kind of dug into what was going on, what was happening, different stories, pictures, all of that. So I did do that, but I think maybe now it may be time to turn this into a book because it's pretty much
absolutely.
already done.
Absolutely.
It's just done in this form. And one thing Mr. Hall was saying, and it's the truth, that people don't see stories in the same kind of way. And I do think that what you're saying too, Dr. Foster, is correct. It's the lens that you look at it through. Because my mom told me stories about her father that he drank real bad, really bad, and what her mother used to do, and like um he would come home and he'd be drunk and he'd be shooting, and she'd have to crawl on her stomach to go and push him down. To some people, that may sound like a bad story. Not really a bad story to me. I mean, when I found pictures of my mama's daddy, he was a fine man. So I came from good stock and talked about how funny he was. And I mean, he even killed a man.
Who among us is all crap?
Exactly right.
Among us is all wonderful.
Right. And the thing I think I
That's
saw,
a thing people get confused when we make
right,
heroes of our ancestors.
right.
Well, I will say this, because in all honesty, um, just in terms of my parents and grandparents, great grandparents and great greats, the ones who are written about in my book, I honestly don't have like horrible stuff about them. And who knows whether it would be in the book if I did. But um, I get that people, I mean, life is all of that. Who doesn't get that?
But the thing about it, I think that I've seen through like the stories and that kind of thing. If you guys remember, I told you Mr. Howard talked about his family. You can't take responsibility for what you're not responsible for. And everybody has something in their family. So why are you going to be ashamed of it? It is the steps that help you to get to where you are. I don't think that's bad. I just think it is what it is. And and to not tell all the pieces to me is not telling a truthful story.
I mean, just know that again, different people make different
Exactly.
decisions, which is why we've got the
That's what
archive
I'm
of
saying.
hundreds.
Right, and
Some
that's what I'm
people
saying.
choose to include this and frame
Right,
it that
right,
way. Some people
right,
choose to include the other and frame it the other way. The point is, it's all of the
right,
above.
right.
We don't serve ourselves well, um, or our fellow families if we think there's one way and we want to admonish this family for not writing it the way you wrote it about your family.
I,
That's the
um,
whole point. Look at the variety, see that people make independent choices, and yet when they come together as a genre, you can see those through threads.
Brother
Hey,
Brother
I
MJ has his
agree with
hand up.
everything.
yeah, I was I mean I love where you're going with this, but I don't have a pretty picture of I don't have a pretty story of my family. Of course my generations of my family have been, murdered and framed. There's been a lot of things that happen in the past with my family, and we don't have pretty stories to tell. I can
It's all an attitude and
Yeah,
framing.
it's
Yeah,
a
you'll see when you
real
read these books, you think there aren't murders in these books. You think
yeah.
No,
there
there's
are
more.
people
There's
lynched
more
in
of
these
that than there's
books,
more happy endings with my
Well,
family.
lynched,
the thing
murdered,
is, you might
other
be.
kinds of ugly in these books. But I feel you. Many people are like that, which is why their family doesn't have one. They don't have this positive ancestral self-identity I'm talking about,
And
which is
I think
precisely why we're doing this. I want everyone to think. So, building on that, first of all, we've got this thing that makes people think they're first generation college. They don't know great great uncle so and so went to some of these 150 schools that are now closed, and they won't know if we don't tell those stories.
right.
And yeah, the fact that you have ugly, if you think that's the end of your story and that there isn't beauty
All
also,
my story
I say
is
just
is
read
terrible.
some books
I'm from South
and you
Carolina.
see how people frame. But right, that again, that's an attitude and it's but some people might read a bunch of the books from South Carolina and other states and see, wow, somebody got lynched and this wonderful thing happened. Wow, this happened. They couldn't vote and this other thing happened the next day they could. But yeah, if your perspective is that you don't have beauty, then you wouldn't be the one who writes this book. There might be somebody in your family who has that sense and is working on it and might write something that's beneficial. But yeah, I do hope so, because I know that we're not necessarily going to be as benefited by other families' books. I really do hope that each of us can resonate with a book from our own family. Um, you get something out of just reading and discussing and reveling in all of them and other families, but you don't get that highest, that positive ancestral self-identity, because we're talking ancestral, not cultural, not somebody else's ancestor. I will share this story with you. It's kind of funny. I don't remember the specifics, but there was something that Al Sharpton was saying some years ago, and he was comparing the political Bush dynasty. So he may even have mentioned like Preston Bush's dad, and then he said something about Preston, and then Bush 41, Bush 43, etc. And then when he was telling the part of the story that was supposed to be parallel, he didn't speak of his father, his grandfather, his great grandfather. He started talking about Fannie Lou Hamer, all these political figures. It's like, I feel you, that's important too. But there's a difference. To think that that's parallel is a misconception. That's all I'll say. And I just remember it striking me. And it does, it strikes me. If you can't name your people when you're speaking of people who walk with God, or people who are wonderful influences on you, people who have shaped who you are in your world, then right, you just don't know enough about them yet. So that gets back to DYKEA. Do you know your enslaved ancestor? And let's be able to answer those questions and have fun with it, play games, Who in the family was allergic to oysters and crabs?
But to drink beer to offset it.
There you go.
But I think the reality of it is that no matter how much negative there is, there's some positive in there, and it's a matter of searching to find it. And no matter how much positive there is, you'll also find some negative if you keep digging. And I know it's 9 o'clock, and so we are going to bring this to an end. Dr. Foster, did you want to make any closing statement?
Thank you all so much for participating in this conversation. And I invite you to, as the thoughts occur, share them. We'll have more of these discussions. And yeah, I look forward to maybe even multiple things we talk about here will find its way of having little clips that relate to these books, because these are indeed they're a primary identity shaper. They're a tool we have been using for years, and it's becoming more and more prolific. So it would serve us well to know these books and use them for our benefit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure hearing your presentation and having this discussion. As we close out, because it's 9 o'clock, does anyone want to make any closing statements?
Very good presentation.
Thank you.
I think it's a wonderful work. It's kind of bittersweet for me because I know that African Americans have an identity crisis. I just wish there was some way that, what people call themselves could be vetted, but that may be asking too much. But I mean, I still think it's a great work, and, people have to, they got to learn their history however they get it, I guess. But keep up the good work, nonetheless.
And keep contributing. That's what it's about.
And this is Edward Jones, and I got on quite late tonight. I explained to Brother Ozie that I had a meeting. I tried my best to get the meeting kind of in quickly, but I couldn't. But I'm just saying that the part that I did here, I got on quite late. I found to be very intriguing and very different, and I love the part that I did here. So I'm looking forward to hearing more of it.
Sounds good.
Anyone else have any closing remarks? Dr. Grimes, you had to unmute. Still not unmuted? There you go.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. It kind of made me pull the book back out. And I just recently did something with the students for Alex Haley, like right before Thanksgiving. And, I did some other stuff. And then when you were talking and I saw this, it made me pull the book back out. And I did this in 2016. So I think I'm going to move forward and actually publish it. Publish it because like you, I believe we are who we are, not just the good, but the bad, the indifferent. All of that makes us who we are. And if we don't learn how to get over whatever we deal with, we're gonna always have a identity crisis. But we are blessed people. I mean, and we've come from good stock. That's how I see mine. And I love what you're doing. I don't see anything negative. I just see it as a way to learn and to grow and be better. So thank you. I appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to the ninth to so I can kind of go and do some browsing and kind of you know.
Good. Thank you, and you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoy it.
Yeah.
The thing about doing your family's book, know again that it's what we get out of it. So having conversations around the book, I want there's someone who's, I don't know, the people who are age 19 to 30 something or something, those people are in the family and they may not be knowing that they come from all that and then some. They may have a sense that they are not, or that they're fighting like it matters that somebody else thinks they're not all that. Because they haven't absorbed the models of people who live in a world where people think all kinds of stuff about them. And that's not what runs their lives. It's what they think about each other and themselves and what God thinks about them that moves them through this world. When they see stories of how people do that, they understand it. I could see how people could go through life right now and think that um, the fact that racism exists means that you can't do this, that, and the other. Like the story ends with racism until you read the stories of, gee, here's how people worked around that. Here's how people worked with that. Like when my father was the manager of a bank that got held up, and the man held the gun in the white man's head because it never crossed his mind that the black man was the manager. How about how you work with it, through it, around it? All of those stories are in our books. And they're all of us. And that's what I like. Yeah. So people seeing those stories of how you walk with God, how you walk around racism, how you do God despite racism. Maybe that's a book title or just, a discussion or something. But yeah, that's what I see in these books. And that's what I know you, Dr. Grimes, and others will share with our extended families because we choose to tell our specific stories. We're not trying to tell world history in our family story. There are other books that do that. This story about our people is not a story about all the S that white people have done since the beginning of time. Those books are there. So get your fill on all that in another book. Don't come to these books looking for that. Because the authors of these books haven't chosen. So that's just not how this genre rolls. And they're not taking their cues from the same place. I hope I conveyed that as well. I got no sense that, all of these books kind of read the same, Blockson, et cetera, the same how to write a Black genealogy book. Because they're doing it across the board in all different ways. They're neither shying away from rigorous academic multiple checking of sources, nor are they limiting themselves to that.
Well, we're about 10 after 9. Brother RJ, did you want to close us out?
Yes, sir. I'm closing you out. I'm definitely not gonna make no closing comments because Dr. Forster, I can tell she's a preacher by heart, and that she's gonna definitely make a comment, and I ain't making the. But let me close on this positive note, and I do thank this opportunity, like I say, to Reverend Brother Hall and to Dr. Forster and all of the participants tonight that did participate and wanted to participate. And so right now we just looking to our higher power, which is our heavenly source. And I would just ask that each one of us just keep studying and keep going over what Dr. Hall has sent out in the way of review for December the 9th, so that we'll be ready to be able to participate, continue to participate. I'm now glad she brought this out because I can now reach back into my family and pull out all these ledgers and begin to put it into a book form. And then, Lord, I just thank you for allowing us to just be able to listen to each other, and then to glean back and pick out things that we can use in our daily walk. And all those who are traveling up and down the dangerous highways of life, give them traveling mercies. And again, bless each one, iron sharpen iron, until we can meet again. Amen. Thank God.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank you
night.
all. Good night.